Hi everybody, this is Dr. Nitin Choda, and this is an important video where I discuss the fallout, the hidden truth behind the president's executive orders and what he signed and what you must know. I'll discuss the caveats, I'll discuss what's not included, I'll actually give you some reactions from the Republican Party, from Democrats, and I'll give you some behind the scenes information about what you must know. Now, as you know, it's been a busy day on the channel. I've done videos on the glaring problems with the $400 a week unemployment benefit extension, why the $400 a week extension is not federal unemployment insurance. You definitely want to check out those videos. It's a completely separate program called the Lost Wages Assistance Program. I also talked about why the rental assistance, the executive order pertaining to rental assistance that was signed by the president, is actually not going to lead to an eviction extension because there was no provision for that, and it also doesn't include any money for renters. So that's something you want to look into as well. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the big picture fallout. I'm going to talk about what's not included, some of the caveats that you should be aware of pertaining to these executive orders, reactions from the Republicans and Democrats, and what you should be aware of. So let's jump right into it. So here's the big picture fallout. The president signed executive orders and issued memorandums that essentially challenge the boundaries of power that separate the White House and Congress. These measures could attempt to actually take away some of Congress's most fundamental powers, which are actually mandated by the Constitution of the United States. The two of these significant powers are spending policy, allocation of funds, and taxation. Again, spending policy and the allocation of funds and taxation, these are within the purview of Congress. That's the constitutional structure of the United States. So if the president unilaterally says that I'm going to go ahead and reduce taxes, I'm going to reduce income tax, or I'm going to reduce different kinds of taxes, ultimately all of that has to go through Congress. And for the president to actually say that and dangle that out and say I'll do it if I get re-elected is something with something that was extremely unusual. Also, as far as spending policy is concerned, the reallocation of money from one area to another, from FEMA, the DRF, from the CARES Act, state money, CRF, into unemployment benefits, seems like an end run around Congress, and so that's probably going to run into some legal challenges. Now, the president did acknowledge that some of the actions could be challenged in court, but he indicated that he didn't anticipate too many problems. Now, here's another interesting thing. Now, President Trump referred to during the press conference, he referred to these executive orders as, and I quote, bills. The fact is, the president cannot, the fact is the Congress writes and votes on bills, and then the president has to sign those bills into law, right? So if something is not written and voted on by Congress, by the House, by the Senate, it's not a bill. So what the president signed is not a bill. He signed an executive order. It has not gone through Congress, through the House and the Senate, and it is not a bill. Let's be 100% clear about that. And the president did use the word bills when he was during his press conference. The documents president signed on Saturday essentially were a combination of memorandums and an executive order. Now, according to Jack Smalligan, a former official at the Office of Management and Budget and now a senior fellow at the Urban Institute, he said the president cannot create new money with an executive order. These executive orders simply show the limitations of the president's legal authority. As you can understand, these are primarily symbolic gestures. Some would call it political maneuvers. It's up to you to decide whether you believe it's a political maneuver or not. But I'm here to tell you that a lot of the things that we are seeing challenge the boundaries of what is normal, what is part of the Constitution. Now, in an attempt to redirect the congressionally approved funding, because we're redirecting funds from FEMA, from the DRF towards the Lost Wages Assistance Program, okay, which is then used to compensate for the lack of federal unemployment benefits, right? So this is not a federal unemployment benefits program. Again, that has to be appropriated by Congress. So in an attempt to redirect congressionally approved spending and talking about changing tax policy, and by the way, linking it to the election, the limits of presidential power could come under more scrutiny, not just for President Trump, but for future presidents as well. Now, this could be challenged if Congress objects or finds some way for the judiciary, potentially the Supreme Court, to get involved. Now, President Trump cites his authority in most of these actions, and some of his new actions appear to provide instructions, only provide instructions. Now, this is very important. If you read the executive orders, they are providing instructions to cabinet secretaries and department heads to look for ways to address certain problems. This is so important. The president has provided a set of instructions to cabinet secretaries and department heads to solve certain problems. Is that within the executive authority of the President of the United States? The answer is yes. Okay. but where is the line crossed where it becomes an overreach of presidential power, and where is the line crossed where the president is actually doing an end run around Congress, bypassing Congress about spending and changing tax policy? Some would argue that the president didn't do any of that. He simply threw it out there as a campaign promise, and others would argue that the president is pushing the boundaries of executive power and muddling the conversation to complicate the conversation, to point blame, and to enhance chances of re-election. I'm going to let you be the judge of that, but the president could say, hey, I just issued these instructions to cabinet secretaries and department heads to look for ways to solve certain problems. By the way, if that is true, then that isn't solving the problem. You know what's going to solve the problem? An agreement between the House and the Senate, and a bill, now I can use the word bill, that's signed into law by the president. That's what's going to solve the problem. This is not solving the problem. In fact, this is creating more problems than it solves. And there are, some people have talked about questionable actions such as the suspension of tax payments and transfer of money Congress has appropriated for another use. Now let's talk about what is not included. The unilateral actions of the president essentially has abandoned key bipartisan priorities. $100 billion to help schools reopen, $100 billion for small businesses. The second round of $1,200 stimulus checks, that's not happening right now because that wasn't mentioned in the executive order. I want you to think about this. There is no second $1,200 stimulus check and $500 per dependent, $3,400 for a family of 4. It doesn't exist right now because the president can't just sign an executive order and give people that money. He can't do that. He cannot do that. There needs to be congressional approval. So that doesn't exist right now, guys. So second round of stimulus checks, money for testing hospitals, money for childcare, all of that stuff is not there right now. So what we are looking at is you want to call it a short-term fix, you want to call it a maneuver, you can call it an incentive. Some people may use strong words like a bribe. You want to call it a master stroke. You call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me what you call it. And for me, again, I'm going to repeat this. For me, it's not about the red or the blue. It's about the red, white, and blue. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm American. I see the facts and I report them to you. And I'm going to hammer both sides if if there's a problem. So if you're going to get partisan, please go ahead, do that in the comments below. But as far as I'm concerned, the White House key areas have not been addressed, and they are important for the recovery of the economy. Now, by the way, the White House still had in the HEALS Act wanted to set aside money for the FBI headquarters in DC, so just keep that in mind. So the executive orders are actually inconsistent with what the president has said in the past, and as a presidential candidate, President Trump actually smashed presidential orders. He said, I quote, "We don't want to continue to watch people signing executive orders because that was not what the Constitution and the brilliant designers of this incredible document had in mind." These are words from candidate Trump in March 2016. We need people that can make deals. These are words from President Trump in March 2016. So the payroll tax cut, by the way, the president really likes the payroll tax cut. So this is the president can defer payroll tax payments, which is, by the way, what he's done. But without a new law, the payroll tax payments will still be due. Now, it's interesting that the president said if I get re-elected, then I'll waive them. I'll waive the deferred payments, and I might do away with the payroll tax completely. I can do a whole separate video talking about that, but I'll give you the high points. Number one, is that an incentive? Is that a bait? Is that a bribe for votes? That's number one. Number two, if the House and the Senate both become Democrats, there's not a chance that they're going to waive the payroll tax. So it's not going to happen. Number three, when you waive the payroll tax, or if you do it, somehow that's done, how are you going to fund Medicare and Social Security? I don't see how Republican senators and Democratic senators are going to get behind that. I don't see that at all. Okay. So again, without a new law, the payroll taxes will still be due. So even if the payroll taxes are deferred, there's a chance that businesses, my business, we pay payroll taxes. I'm not clear whether if I have to defer the payroll taxes for my team members, do I have to pay it 6 months down the road? So it's quite possible a lot of businesses might be like, whatever, I'm just going to continue paying the payroll taxes. That's it. Now, if a business continues paying the payroll taxes, it defeats the purpose of the executive order, because now the employees will not get the bigger paycheck. Number two, if the business defers the payroll taxes and gives employees a bigger paycheck, the business will simply hoard cash because they know that they have a big bill coming down the road. We don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. We don't know who's going to get we don't know who's going to get elected president. We don't know who's going to win the House, who's going to win the Senate. Why would people would hoard cash to be able to pay those payroll taxes down the road? Because at this moment in time, it is a deferral. It is not a waiver. And the probability of it becoming a waiver and the payroll tax getting eliminated completely, it's a dream. It's a dream. Okay, so the impact of this measure could depend on whether companies decide to comply, as they could be responsible for withdrawing large amounts of money from their employees' paychecks. I mean, if I'm going to defer payroll taxes from your paycheck and 6 months down the road that paycheck is due, imagine me taking all that money from your paycheck either at the end of the year during Christmas time or at the start of next year when you want to do your shopping or prepare for the new year. What are you going to end up in January? Are you going to end up with a paycheck of zero? I mean, think about that, guys. This creates more problems than it solves. Now let's talk about the reduction in income tax that the president talked about. Is it an incentive? Is it a bait? Is it a bribe? I'm actually, what I'm going to do, this video has already gone on long. I'm going to cover that in the next video. I'm going to talk about the reductions in income tax that the president talked about, and I'm going to answer the question, is it an incentive? Is it a bait? Is it a masterstroke? Is it a genius political maneuver? Does it create gray areas in terms of ethics? Let me cover that in the next video, because this video I've already covered quite a bit in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're new to my channel, please click like. A lot of effort goes into these videos. Please subscribe. If you're not a subscriber already, please enable notifications so you get instant updates about future videos like this. I would really appreciate that. Also, we release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And finally, if you want to get instant news and alerts from us on your cell phone, get your cell phone out. In your cell phone, type out the message ignition or type out the word time, either one of them. Send the message to the number 70,000, that's 70000, and once you send that message, you'll be added to our list. You can opt out at any time. You'll get on our email list. You can opt out of the email list as well at any time. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate you watching. Please click the like button. Please click subscribe. Please enable notifications. I will see you in the next video where I talk about the reduction in the income tax as well as reactions from Republicans and Democrats. And then I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.